Welcome to Fangirl Football. I'm Judy.
I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Lauren.
Welcome to another episode of Fangirl Football, where we talk about all things fantasy football. So far, we've talked a lot about players and positions and draft strategies, and hopefully you've had a successful draft if you're playing in a fantasy league. And if not, it's not too late to sign up with us and play in one of our Fangirl fantasy football leagues or our Pick'em League. So come check out our website at fangirlfootball.com and sign up. But there's only so much talking I can do about football before I need to actually watch some football. And we get to do that this Thursday, September 5th, when Baltimore and Kansas City face off at Arrowhead Stadium. Today, we're going to talk about the games we're most excited to watch this week. But first, I need to know what football snack you're making this week. So, Lauren, what's on your menu?
I'm going to go with pigs in a blanket this week. I have been waiting. I have not made them at all this preseason. It is a Sunday tradition in my house, and so can't wait to make them. Tiffany, what are you going to be making?
I mean, who doesn't love the classic pig in a blanket? But, I might go with some old school nachos. When I was a kid, we used to make nachos every Sunday before we'd watch the football game. And we'd make the kind where you put beans on every chip and every chip gets toppings. It's not like the big pile of stuff. So maybe I'll go with some good old nachos.
Oh, that sounds good. I think I've had my eye on this quick frozen thing at Aldi, and I'm going to go with some mac and cheese bites and give those a try. If I can heat them up and they're really tasty, I think it could be a big hit. So we're going to have to dig in some more and find some recipes, though. And I've been so focused on football that I haven't even planned out next Sunday, particularly, but probably Thursday night, too. I don't know that I'm going to save those pigs in a blanket, Lauren, until Sunday. I think I'm going to break those out on Thursday night.
I'm probably going to go with a charcuterie board on Thursday night. Cheese, quick and easy to put together usually. Won't be any fancy displays of where you can make them into footballs or whatever. Just throw in some cheese and meat on a plate. But
yeah.
Thursday night's probably just going to be pizza for me.
I can't wait for it to get colder because I'm really anxiously waiting for chili.
Oh, that sounds delicious. Okay, well, now that I'm hungry, let's go ahead and dive into this week's games. Lauren, you're up first with this week's season opener.
Yeah, Baltimore at Kansas City, kicking off this Thursday, September 5th. I'm excited for this. I like Baltimore. I know historically Mahomes has struggled with the start of the year, or at least last year he struggled at the start of the year. But this year he's played more preseason than I think he did before. I feel like last year they were like, oh, we did the Super Bowl. We should wait to start Mahomes. And then this year they're like, oh, that was a terrible decision last year. So maybe this year we won't see as much of a struggle for Kansas City to start. I'd be okay if they did because I like Baltimore and I want Baltimore to win personally. But it should showcase a high-powered offense and dynamic playmakers. Will Hollywood Brown play for the Kansas City Chiefs? No, he is definitely out for week 1, still with that sternoclavicular dislocation injury. And then on the Ravens side, the tight end Mark Andrews will play for week 1. He had a pretty scary car accident 16 days ago, and he returned to the practice field, and he's excited for it. What do y'all think about the Ravens versus Kansas City?
I like the Ravens. I agree that Kansas City gets off to a slow start, or so it seems. We'll see if playing in the preseason a bit more, works through some of that sluggishness to start the season, or if they continue that. And I don't feel like we saw any Baltimore in the preseason. So they've been really tightly covering whatever it is they're doing up there. I like Lamar Jackson. I'm pulling for Baltimore, but I know we have a lot of Kansas City fans too. So we'll see what happens. I read that Taylor Swift was drawing up some plays for them. So we'll see if one of her plays makes it into their playbook either this week or future in the season. which would be kind of interesting.
So we should be listening for them to call for the Swifty 13 out on the field, and that could
Yeah.
be one of her plays.
Yeah. Hopefully it's not, another one of the behind the back Mahomes passes to Kelsey like we saw earlier in the preseason. I think this game they're going to have to take a lot more seriously than they did the preseason. But it'll be exciting too. Hollywood Brown, I heard, has made kind of a spectacular recovery from that dislocation, which sounds really scary. Not ready to play this week, but I heard that he's getting close, which is kind of surprising. But that's good. It'll be interesting to see what they can do. And they signed Juju Smith Schuster as well this week, didn't they?
Saw that the other day when I was doing my draft, my work draft, and I was looking at the Kansas City depth chart and I saw Juju Smith-Schuster back there and I was like, "Oh, I guess he didn't like being in New England after all."
Yeah, things didn't work out in New England. So Kansas City took him back. They'll have, a little more experience in their pretty young locker room, especially with Hollywood Brown out. So they brought in Juju just, to have some experience in there and to be able to talk to the other wide receivers. So I like that. I usually use the team name Bad Juju, inspired from Juju Smith Schuster. So I like that he's got a job and he might be on the field a little bit. I don't know that we'll see him playing this week, but we might. So that'll be exciting. And man, it's just going to be great to have football back. And then not only do we get football on Thursday, they gave us a special treat this year and gave us football on Friday too, which is
Yes,
exciting as
they
well.
did. Yes, they did. So on this Friday, we are going to have our first game in Brazil where the Packers and the Eagles will be facing off. So this is the first international game of the season. The NFL has had games in London for quite a few seasons now. And now they're going to go down to South America and Brazil. So Friday on Peacock, which I just found out that I'm going to have to subscribe to, but look for offers on your credit cards, if at all. Get Peacock so you can watch some more tush push this season with the Eagles down there. Jordan Love is my fantasy quarterback on both my teams. I'm wearing my Love jersey today. This might be a sentimental choice for me, but I do like the Packers in this game. But it is absolutely going to be an offensive battle because neither teams have great defenses and they generally underperform against each other. So the over under on this is 48 and a half. Philly is favored, but they've also had some change up with Jason Kelsey retiring off the offensive line last year. And Love this year has some interesting targets in Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, and Jaden Reed. So I'm just excited to have this game. I was very excited about Jordan Love last year. I thought he had a slow start, but I felt like he really kind of settled in the middle of the season. With Jalen Hurts, it'll be an exciting game no matter what. And hopefully we'll
Yeah.
gain some new fans of the NFL.
I think we might all need to go watch a game in Brazil sometime. We'll have to see if this catches on and they keep playing there each year. I imagine that it will. All of the international games have had a huge support and sell out. So it's been very good for the NFL to expand and give us a reason to travel. This game is intriguing. I feel like the Eagles came off of that disastrous meltdown at the end of last season, losing a lot of games in the second half of it and to barely then make the playoffs and then get beat the first in the wild card weekend round. So the Eagles are coming off of that. I don't know that they've done a lot to rebuild that team. And I've heard that there's kind of a divide between Jalen Hurts and the coach for the Eagles. Like they almost need somebody in between to exchange messages between them. So we'll see
That's
how that
serious.
plays out. So I like the Packers a lot more in this game. And if the Eagles do surprise me, then I'm going to have to rethink that situation. But right now, I'm all over. I'd be happy to take the Packers in this game. The line is what, Philly -3, so Philadelphia is favored. Technically, it's a home game for them, but obviously it's not a home game if you're playing in Brazil.
If you're
But they lose the home game. I would be I could definitely take the Packers straight up picking in this game and be pretty happy on this. I don't know that we'll see 48 points either scored. It might be a little more rough and no one have everything ironed out for week 1, especially playing internationally on week 1.
well, and
Anyhow,
the Packers picked up a unknown kicker, so and they did have some struggles in that area, so let's hope that they can find the end zone and don't have to resort to depending on a kicker for field goal situations.
they may just go for it. They'll pull a Detroit. Detroit likes to just go for it on 4th down.
Let's just
And
go for it on fourth
statistically,
down.
yeah, statistically you're better off. So if you believe in the analytics, just fire your kicker and go for it. No one's going to do that. The team shouldn't do that, but statistically speaking, they should. They should always just most cases they should just go for it on 4th down. Obviously, if it's like 4th and 30, you don't want to go for it, but if it's close, you do.
Yeah. You just really want to get rid of those kickers. We were drafting last night and you were like, did we not get rid of the kicker position? Oh,
Yeah, I'm like,
you
how
just
did I
keep dreaming
not?
about it.
I do. Like I hate kickers. I just hate the randomness of kicking. But kicker's still in our league, much to my surprise. I think maybe I got rid of it one year. I pushed it through and then somebody brought it back.
Ah,
So it is what it is. I got a kicker.
wow.
We'll deal with kicker.
I will say I am excited for this game to see the uniforms because I know that the Eagles are doing a new uniform for the Brazil game. Um, so
Are
I
they?
know I didn't see for the Packers necessarily, but yeah, the I know the Eagles are doing white jerseys paired with black pants, white socks, and black helmets.
Cool. Tiffany,
Interesting.
you might have to buy a new jersey if they, come out just with one for that game. We could come up with some creative ways for jersey sales. The hockey teams do a lot better job of that, coming up with all these themed jerseys than the NFL does. It's kind of surprising. So we'll move on to the Texans at the Colts. I'm a Colts fan. It's hard for me to do this game, but I'm at my Tampa house, so when I'm at my Tampa house, I'll be a Bucks fan, which is why I've got the Bucks back there, and I'll do that game in a little bit. Anyhow, Texans at Colts. Houston is favored by 3 points in this game, and it's one of the higher total points on our board here at 49.5 for the over under because we expect this to be a big scoring game. And I looked back through all of the games between the Texans and Colts, and last year week 2 produced a 51 point game with the Colts winning 31-20. I didn't quite remember that. It was also in Houston. And that game, Anthony Richardson, the Colts quarterback, started the game, but he left with a concussion. But he left after he only passed for 56 yards in that game, but he ran in 2 touchdowns. And so we're all pretty excited to get to see Anthony Richardson. The problem is Anthony Richardson's played 17 games since high school. That's college, that's pros, being in the pros last year. 17 games since high school. So that's the problem here. And everyone's holding their breath, wondering how long can he stay healthy? Especially me. I'd love for him to be electric, but I'm really afraid he's going to be electric for 4 games or maybe 6 games. So we'll see how this one goes and if he does bring the energy, and it is in Indianapolis. These two teams have also produced games that totaled 63 points and 71 points over the years, but the average over the last 5 seasons is just 45 points, which is on the underside of our over-under. So the odds are not going to hit that. But we remember those big scoring games, and I think that's what gets stuck in your head when you watch one of those games that's 71 total points. That's what you remember. You don't remember all the games where it was 20-25 or something like that. You remember those 71 point games. So we get to see Anthony Richardson again. we haven't seen him since week 4 of last season. We're going to see what we get. He was very mistake prone in the preseason. So hopefully he got all of that out of him and he's not going to have all of these mistakes, but I'm a little concerned on that. And I'm probably being, very cautious. I can't get my hopes up too high right now. On the Houston side, we've got CJ Stroud, who had an incredible year last year and is looking to throw for another 4,000 yards this year. We're going to see if he can repeat it. He's got a wide receiving core that will be there for him if he can pull it off. So as long as they can protect him, he's got Nico Collins, he's got Tank Dell, and now he's got Stephon Diggs. And I'm very excited to see what the distribution is going to be with these 3 wide receivers and how much Diggs is going to eat into Nico Collins and Tank Dell. But I still feel like this is Nico Collins' show. So I expect him to have the bigger game here. On the Colts side, one of the things historically, the Colts love their tight ends. And they just placed a tight end, Jelani Woods, on season ending IR after having surgery for turf toe. So now they're leaning on Kyle Granson and Mo Alley Cox. And Mo Alley Cox has been there for a while, but he's 30 and Kyle Granson is 26. And so it's kind of going to be two team. They do like to have multiple tight ends out on the field as well. And they've got another one on the roster too, Ogletree, who's played some for the Colts in the past. But I don't know. I think they were really counting on Jelani Woods, and he's not going to be there for them. So we might see more Anthony Richardson running. And then we've got Jonathan Taylor for the Indianapolis Colts, and he should be a big part. That's going to be his backfield. So, Lauren, you're laughing. I see this. You're like, nope, not doing Jonathan Taylor. Never, ever again. I know.
Oh, that's right.
One bad fantasy year.
One bad
One
fantasy
bad
year.
fantasy year.
And I'm on the Anthony Richardson, so I want to watch this game, but it's just one of those that when you're a fan and it's going south, you just get so irritated. It's like, I knew this was going to
Yeah.
happen, and I can't even imagine being a Jets fan. At least, Colts
Yeah.
have a little bit better history. We had all those really good years with Peyton Manning, and now we just want that back. So
Yeah,
we'll
we've
see
been
what
to a
this game
few-
brings.
We've been to a few Texans Colts games at Lucas Oil, and they are always exciting. It, as you said, they can be really high scoring, but I feel like I am a little down on the Colts this year for sure. I just don't trust them to make good decisions, and so I feel like Houston is favored on the road, and I feel like this is absolutely Houston's game to lose.
Yeah, I do too.
I'm excited
Lauren?
for Houston. I'm a Texans fan, and like you said, with the wide receiver suite they have now and Mixon on the running back side, I mean they have a full suite of people that CJ Stroud can deliver the ball to and move us down the field. So I'm feeling pretty good there. I think my questions on kind of what I'm going to be watching for is what our defense looks like.
Yeah. But offensively, they've got all the parts. They've
Yep.
got Mixon, like you said, that came in. Their tight end.
I need to print out some
Okay.
cheat
Schultz?
sheets of just like the
Schultz.
depth charts.
Yeah. So their tight end, Schultz, is great. So they've got all of the pieces that they need and a lot of good talent there, although some of it's a little aging. But they've got it there, and it'll come down to defense. And the Colts have had a lot of injuries on defense, so this could end up being a one-sided game, but then have that excitement factor because Colts aren't going to give up, and Anthony Richardson might be running it a lot. I feel like the Colts GM, Chris Ballard, is really good at picking explosive players that are always injured. And this might be it for him.
When you're that explosive, or when the focus is entirely on one or two players on the team to pull everything through, that puts you at a bigger risk of injury. So if Anthony Richardson actually has to do all the work, is he at a bigger risk of injury and going out early again in the season?
Yeah,
We'll have
he's
to
going to
see.
have to rely on Jonathan Taylor if he wants to stay healthy, I think.
Yeah.
So, Lauren, how about Denver at Seattle?
Yeah, I'm super excited about this one as a Seattle fan. So I might be a little biased here, but I mean, Vegas seems to agree with me in Seattle's favored. Over under is 41.5 points. What is a big score for over under? And this doesn't seem like a high number for an over under game.
Yeah, this isn't a high number for an over under game. This is basically expecting a 20-ish game to like a 14-ish game. I could calculate the implied totals, but I'm not doing that in my head right now. Anyhow, no, this isn't a high scoring over under. Anything over 45 is on the higher side. When we're playing daily fantasy, 45 is kind of the cutoff. We're not looking much under that because Vegas tends to be really accurate on knowing how many points are going to be scored in a game. So we don't get a lot that pop off and that are even kind of crazy. So 45 is the cutoff. When you start getting to 50, that's a very high point total for a game. So they're expecting this to be a defensive matchup, is what it sounds like, or
So
a bunch of offenses that just can't do anything.
over under is the total number of points scored in the game by both teams.
Yes.
So we don't expect either team to score a huge number of points, therefore the over under on this game is low.
Yep.
Right.
Makes sense. This might be a defense matchup or just offensive teams that can't score a lot of points. We're looking at a rookie quarterback, Bo Nix versus Geno Smith. And Geno Smith does have that chemistry built up with his offensive line for the Seattle team of DK Metcalf, JSN, Lockett. On the running back side, you have Kenneth Walker III and even Charbonnet. They have that history, but there's new coaching changes. So kind of those plays are going to be different. We'll see. The players might not necessarily need to figure out the chemistry between themselves, but figuring out those new plays might be a new experience. They looked good in preseason, though, in that last game for those snaps they did take. On the defense side for Seattle, though, that's what I'm going to be watching is how it's coming together because they really revamped their defense on the Seattle side. So it could be that it looks strong and they're able to stop and kind of hold down Denver's. I mean, it's also against a rookie quarterback, which I know you tend to like picking for daily fantasy defenses.
I do. I like that because rookie quarterbacks make mistakes. They get under pressure and they make mistakes. So we'll see. It can go kind of two ways. We also see rookie quarterbacks that have tremendous success for a few games because there's no film on them and there's no help preparing for the other teams. So this could be, Bo Nix's 5-touchdown game, and then we won't see it again the rest of the season. We don't know. That first game out there, everyone's a little unsure what they're getting, and now it comes week 1, so it could be exciting.
And also on the Denver... Oh, go for it.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, it is going to be exciting just to see because Bo Nix is that rookie quarterback. He is the starter. We're going to see him and what he's got to offer for Denver. They had a pretty successful preseason, and so we'll kind of see how the game plays out and whether or not that is going to be a fun thing to watch in Denver this year.
The other thing I'm going to be excited to see with Denver is on the running back side. We've been talking about Javonte Williams and Jaleel McLaughlin, and now we actually it's week 1. We get to see, did we guess in preseason correctly what's actually happening fantasy wise? I'm excited to see how that shakes out and who starts getting all the targets.
Or do we need to go back and, edit all of our previous episodes and take all those names out?
Take all of that out.
So we'll see what we got right and what we got wrong. You can always, speculate. One of the things that I'm interested in this is on Ken Walker the third on the running back side for Seattle, Denver's defense gave up some big numbers last year to running backs. So we'll see how much of that has been fixed or if he can exploit that hole, if the hole still exists in the Denver defense. So I know we get really focused on the offense because that's what makes us points for our fantasy football teams, but learning the defenses and the ones that are stronger and how they match up against each other is another unique situation. One other thing, we talked about over under, but we'll talk about lines for a minute. So Seattle is favored by 5.5 points. They're at home. Generally, a home team gets a 3-point advantage just to start. So this one at 5.5, that is getting on the higher side. We're not quite to a touchdown. If you ever get to a touchdown, that is a big point, big line and a big spread on a game. But this one's at 5.5. So they're definitely expecting Seattle to handle Denver at 5.5, being favored by 5.5 points.
If you're enjoying the Fangirl Football podcast, don't forget to follow and review us on whatever platform you find your podcast.
So let's go to the other coast, Tiffany, where it will be a little warmer.
Coast, yes. We're going to talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are going to be traveling down the coastline of Florida to play in Miami at the Dolphins. Miami is favored at 3.5 for this game. You said the at-home favorites automatically get that 3 points. Miami has another 0.5 point, so they really do think that Miami is going to come out on top on this one. But it does also have an over-under of 49.5, so we do expect a bit of scoring. This is one game that I'm excited to watch because of the head coach. So Mike McDaniels, I might have a little fangirl thing for Mike McDaniels. He's really fun in his press conferences. He's very laid back. He seems to have a great rapport with his team. And I think that he is definitely a big part of the success that they've been finding down in Miami the last few seasons. With that said, Tua is always going to be a question mark for me. I struggle to watch him play. He is incredibly talented. But I witnessed that hit in Cincinnati when we were there, Judy, where he was doing that posturing and he's had those concussions and head injuries. And I want to just wrap him in bubble wrap and not let him play football anymore because it scares me. I get a lot of anxiety watching the game. Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars did not have a good season last year. Lawrence had an interception problem, I believe, and the Jacksonville defense is also going to have their hands full with Waddle and Tyreek Hill as targets for Tua. While Jacksonville does have a few weapons of their own with Travis Etienne as their running back. It's Travis Etienne, right?
Yes.
Etienne. Yeah, I thought so. Etienne. And Jacksonville are 6-5 in historical play. But I think Miami's going to bring this one to even. They're going to be tied in this yet to be named matchup. People were suggesting this could be called the Atlantic Highway matchup or the Florida Gator. I don't know, something or other. But anyway, yeah, I think the Dolphins are definitely going to win. And maybe I will have to get myself a custom Dolphins jersey with the McDaniels on the back of it instead of any of the players.
There you go. I'm anxious to see what Jacksonville's going to bring, particularly their wide receivers. There's a lot of newness there. They have Christian Kirk, I believe, as their number one wide receiver, and then a rookie behind him. And I don't think they didn't play a lot of preseason. Trevor Lawrence played like one series, I think. We just didn't see a whole lot. And I feel like I sleep on the Jaguars. But last year there was a lot to sleep on. It wasn't particularly good. The whole AFC South, other than the Texans, wasn't particularly fun to watch. I don't know about that Atlantic Highway matchup. I just spent some time on I-95 myself, and it's more like a parking lot trying to get up and down this coast. So the less time I spend on I-95, the happier I'm going to be.
The better.
Yeah. And one of these teams might feel the same way at the end of this game.
Lauren, could be a long drive home for the Jaguars is what you're saying.
Yeah, let's hope they didn't drive. but, flying isn't a lot better. And as long as we don't spin up any hurricanes between now and next Sunday, hopefully it'll be okay. I know the weathermen are like really disappointed we haven't had any big hurricanes.
I feel more comfortable with Tua than I think you do, Tiffany, because last year he didn't have any concussions and it was a good year. And I think I keep going back to kind of my running phrase now every time I hear, oh, someone quarterback is getting injured or someone's getting injured in a certain way that's kind of associated with falling is like, oh, they should go learn jujitsu now. I I like Tua. I like watching Tua. I enjoy watching Tyreek Hill, and some of those plays are just magic. Those are always fun to watch. I'm also on the Jacksonville, just I want to be excited for Jacksonville, but they Ridley's no longer there. So it's a little harder for me to be excited as a Ridley fan, and I don't really see much to get as excited about.
Just like we were talking about the Colts and having those high scoring games against the Texans, I feel like the Jaguars traditionally keep the score down. But that is interesting because historically the Dolphins come out hot, but they're usually hosting a team from the north that's not used to playing in the Florida heat, and they dominate the game. And in this case, they're not going to have that advantage. Jacksonville is going to be just as conditioned as they are to play in the Florida heat for a whole game. Both teams may not be 100% conditioned, but there's no advantage of inviting somebody down from the north like the Dolphins traditionally get. I'd also like to bring up the Dolphins running backs. So we've got Devon Achane that will, I think he's got the start. I think it's kind of his backfield, but last year we saw Mostert play equally as much. And I'm kind of excited to see if they do go to one running back a little bit more than the other. We're all expecting it to be Achane, but we don't know. We haven't seen anything. So it is a game I want to be really excited about. And gosh, if the Dolphins were playing anyone other than the Jaguars, I think we'd all be crazy over here. I want to pick the Dolphins. I think it's just that mystery of what we're getting in Jacksonville. And if they keep the score down, I don't know that the Dolphins have come out on top. If it becomes a score fest, it's the Dolphins to lose, I think. Because the Dolphins can score quicker than the Jaguars with all their weapons. So I guess we'll just go all the way up I-95 to New York because it runs the whole coast there. And I'm going to talk about the Vikings at the Giants. So we've got Minnesota -1 in this game.
Just effectively making this game a tie.
Yeah, I actually hadn't seen that. I just read that. I'm like, wait a second, really? Is that right? That the Vikings are favored by kind of 4 because we're tossing over that extra 3 points that should have been on the Giants side, and the over-under is 41.5. So Vegas thinks that this is just going to be like a stink 'em up, don't watch it game. And I'm kind of excited about this game. I don't know. Sam Darnold had a bad history. This is his 4th team since coming into the NFL since 2018. So now that he's playing for Minnesota, anyone remember who drafted him?
No.
All right. So New York Jets drafted him. Then he went to Carolina. Last year, he was in San Francisco backing up Brock Purdy. He played, I think, 1 game when Purdy was hurt, and he had a decent game. I mean, he scored, I think, 18 fantasy points. So your backup quarterback coming in off the bench and scoring 18 fantasy points, I'd be pretty happy with that. And I just don't feel like he's ever been in a stable situation to have a field of players that could support him. And he's going to get that here in Minnesota. So with the injury to their rookie quarterback who is out for the season, it's Sam Darnold's ball. He gets to actually be the starting quarterback, and he doesn't have to worry a whole lot unless they bring in somebody else. And so I'm excited. It's hard to say that I'm excited to see Sam Darnold, but I'm glad that he might actually get a shot because if there is anyone that can make Sam Darnold look good, it's going to be Justin Jefferson. And
Mm,
I'm excited to see how that comes because Sam Darnold can throw downfield. And we saw it early in his career. We haven't seen it since then, obviously, since he got passed all around. So I'm excited to see what he can do. On the other side, we've got Daniel Jones last year threw more interceptions than touchdowns, which is not a statistic you want for your year. And this year, they brought in his rookie wide receiver, Malik Neighbors, and we'll see how that plays out for him. It's kind of a mystery. They got rid of Saquon Barkley, they brought in Devin Singletary, and the Giants have another running back besides Devin Singletary, Eric Gray, that during preseason they like to pass for. And he's kind of been one of my sneaky stash away guys as well, because if they start passing to him a lot, then he could be more involved. And I think it's going to take both of these running backs to fill the hole that Saquon Barkley left. They didn't want to pay Barkley, so now they're going to pay two guys to fill his shoes. On the Vikings side, I forgot to mention that we're still not sure if Jordan Addison is healthy. He sprained his ankle August 14th in a game, and he hasn't been practicing since then. So we'll see. There is not a lot on the Vikings behind Justin Jefferson. And this could just be Sam Darnold tossing it to Justin Jefferson the entire day. But I feel like the Giants have had a decent defense, which is probably why this is expected to be a yuck game again. We'll see.
yeah.
What do you guys think? No one's excited about this
I
except me, right?
I'm not excited. I avoided Minnesota players in my draft because of the quarterback situation there, and whatever curse they have on them right now seems to be pretty severe. Maybe this will be a highlight. Maybe it will be a lot of Justin Jefferson, Sam Darnold. I don't know that there's much about the Giants that has excited me in many seasons. And Daniel Jones is certainly not anything to be excited about. So we'll see what this game turns out to be, see how Minnesota is going to fare this season, because I think that's the question mark that we have is what's Minnesota's season going to look like, given the bad luck that they've had, and this could be that first preview.
Yeah, and they're starting also with their tight end. Their starting tight end, Hawkinson, still on IR, so he's
Still
out.
on IR.
I don't even recognize the names on the depth chart at this point. So we're gonna see well, maybe we'll all be surprised. In week one, when week one is over, there is somebody that all the talking we did, we still didn't talk about them. We've never heard of them, and we're all scrambling to grab them on the fantasy waiver wires. So who's it going to be? But we don't know because we haven't talked about them.
In this game, I'd like the Vikings to win. I feel like the Vikings need some pick-me-up news in a sense with all the bad luck the curse this preseason, but I'm kind of on the same boat. I will have this one on in the background and probably keeping an eye on it with when you can set it up with like the four different games. I'll keep an
Yeah.
eye
Yeah.
on it. When my preferred game goes to commercial, I'll flip over.
Speaking of that 4-game split that you can do on YouTube TV, last night was my first experience this season, and it's always so hard to get used to watching 4 games at one time the first time in the season. As the season goes on, you get more and more used to it, and I bring in more TVs and have even more going. But that first time, you're looking at 4 screens basically at one time, just trying to get the rotation down was difficult watching college football. Anyhow, it'll be a challenge. We'll get used to it. So
Cool.
let's go to Pittsburgh at Atlanta.
Yeah. So Vegas is also projecting this to be a snooze fest with a over-under of 40.5 with Atlanta favored. As an Atlanta fan, I'm excited to kick off the season and watch this. I expect some great things with the new coaching, with Arthur Smith gone, and maybe they'll actually use Bijan, their running back. And it's going to be exciting to see how Atlanta executes. I'm not as excited for their new quarterback as I think some other people are. Uh,
You're not
I
a
think
Kirk
it will.
Cousins fan?
I'm not a huge Kirk Cousins fan. I feel the same about Kirk Cousins as I do Trevor Lawrence. I They seem great. They are not, in my mind, the person who I get super excited for and will wear the jersey for. But there are other
Mm.
people on the Falcons team that I would wear their jersey. So guess that makes up for it. On the Pittsburgh side, though, Russell Wilson's going to start. And amusingly enough, Arthur Smith, the former coach for the Falcons, is at Pittsburgh now and going to come back and for this matchup.
So Arthur Smith is going to be in the building. Maybe that
Yeah.
alone prevents Bijan from being able to score touchdowns. Just the presence of Arthur Smith will stop it. We'll see. I hope not, because we're all just like dying and wanting to see Bijan in the end zone. And he got us. We bought into him last year, and somehow we're all back on him. Pretty much. I didn't get burned by him because I didn't have him, but we're all back in on him again this year. This is it, though. He's got to get in the end zone.
Last chance.
Last
Last
chance.
chance.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that I'm going to necessarily be watching this game unless there's absolutely nothing else to do. There's
Yeah.
there's
It's
not a
another
lot to be
yuck.
excited about. Pittsburgh has struggled so much the last few seasons, and man, I would, Mike Tomlin is a good coach. I think he had some success there for a while, but I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening there. They need to shuffle the deck and
Yeah.
figure out
We'll
figure
see
out
how it's all
a
going to
new
work
path.
out. Let's talk about Kirk
I don't-
Cousins for a minute, because Kirk Cousins with the Falcons now, he is coming off an Achilles tear along with Aaron Rodgers with the Jets. So we have two players that tore their Achilles. Kirk Cousins was about week 8 last year, so it hasn't even been a full year. And Aaron Rodgers was 4 plays into his game last year when he tore his. So we've got both of them coming back, having some experience with somebody recovering from an Achilles tear. I'm married to somebody that tore his Achilles a couple years ago. I asked him today because one of the things that I noticed on his recovery, he was physically fine and the doctor cleared him, but there were 2 things that were a problem, and it was the muscles stabilizing the outside, and he was a runner, so he ran 6 miles the day before he tore his Achilles. So it's the stabilization muscles, not even the Achilles. And then the bigger issue was mentally coming back because he still just wasn't confident in it. It's one of the most painful injuries that you can have and a very painful recovery, surgery and recovery. So I can't imagine mentally having to go out there and get hit and having people chase you and knowing that you're okay and not, not doing things to alter the situations that you get yourself into. So I am curious how both Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers come back from that big injury. If we were talking running backs, they wouldn't even be here, especially at their age. We've only seen a couple running backs come back from an Achilles tear and never really make it back to the level that they did. And they were all the 2 that did it were under 25. Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers aren't under 25. I think they're both around
No,
35,
they are
aren't
not.
they?
Yeah.
So that is kind of the storyline I feel for both of those quarterbacks this week.
The backup quarterback for Atlanta, though, looks good. Rookie quarterback. Mostly just saying if he doesn't feel as comfortable with that Achilles and everything, if we do get to see the backup quarterback for Atlanta, it'll be exciting to see him take a couple of plays.
All right, let's go on to a more exciting game,
Well,
Tiffany.
On to a more exciting game Sunday night. We are going to see the Rams versus the Lions at Detroit. So Detroit is favored. Line is -3.5, and the over under is 50.5. So this one is going to be a big scoring game. Both teams were wild cards in the playoffs last year, and the Lions did win that game 24-23 at home. they eked out a win. And so there's definitely some tension between these two teams. The Rams, though, have a lot of injuries right now. Puka Nakua is still questionable. Tyler Higbee is on the PUP list after an ACL and MCL tear in his knee last year in that loss to the Lions. But he also wasn't high on Stafford's target list between Cooper Kupp and Puka Nakua. Everyone is definitely betting on the Lions. There's been big investments from their head office in new contracts for most of their star players, including Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I know that the Lions are looking for a return on their investment. With Matthew Stafford, I was a big fan of his when he was in Detroit. He was on my fantasy teams many years, and he always did a fantastic job for me. I was really surprised when he went to LA, and he definitely went there for his Super Bowl win, and he got it. So if I were a Lions fan, I'd be a little salty, really watching this game to see what's going to happen. I think Detroit's going to come out on top again. I think that they were itching last year for those playoff wins, and they've got a taste of that success, and they want to keep winning. So I think that the Rams are a little beat up, and so I feel pretty confident in Detroit.
I'd like to thank the NFL scheduling gods for this game week 1 because this is like playoff football again, I feel like. So I'm super excited about this one and that they gave it to us this early in the season. I'm not really sure why that's sitting at 50.5. I think it's Detroit, and last year they couldn't really stop teams. They didn't have a defense until very late in the season, and then they kind of pulled it all together a little bit and got some defense to stop enough to go on a little bit of a run. But I think they're expecting that again. And I don't know, this is kind of back to that expectations. And the Rams to me want to play more defensively, but I don't know that the Lions can stop them. So I am super curious to see where that Lions defense is. Have they gelled a little bit more like they were towards the end of the season? Are we going to see those big scores again that they were allowing in at the beginning of the season? And I don't know. Those games are fun because then everybody's scoring and it's just back and forth and constant action and who's going to come out on top. So Detroit's favored by 3.5, just a little bit more than their home field advantage. They do pack that stadium really well. Detroit, I don't know that they're really salty on Stafford leaving. I think they like the storyline that they
I
took
said
in
that would
Jared
be
Goff.
me. That would
Oh,
be me.
okay. Because I think they like that they took in Jared Goff when the Rams didn't want him. And they're like,
Yeah,
yeah,
and
look,
made him
this is what
successful.
he's doing. Yeah. And he's winning for
Yeah.
us, and you didn't win for us.
That's right.
Sunday night
there
will be
was
fun.
There was a bit of a fallout between the coach and the quarterback there.
Yeah, there was.
Goff and the coach didn't exactly get along.
Goff, I think it was all one-sided, unlike the Jalen Hurts coaching situation. I think this one was Sean McVay didn't like Jared Goff. We've talked a little bit about coaching styles, and one of the things that I think, Lauren, we talked about that another coach in Seattle did really well, Pete Carroll, was to make players look good, and he never asked them to do more than they could. And then another coaching style is, this is my coaching style, and I'm going to keep buying talent that until they can execute it correctly. And I think Sean McVay, I think he's kind of on both sides a little bit, but he could never get Jared Goff to do what he wanted him to do. Anyhow, it'll be fun to watch Sunday night, and I'm so excited that we get to watch this one again so quickly.
And fantasy-wise,
it'll
we'll
be
get to
exciting.
see some of the questions of Kupp versus Nakua. I know both have been
Mhm.
going pretty high in drafts, and there's been the constant question of, well, who's actually going to get the targets? I know Nakua is questionable, but if he ends up coming in for week 1, maybe we'll get more answers there.
Yeah, maybe. And I think I better, go online after this and order my Amon-Ra St. Brown jersey because I drafted him last
Jersey.
night, and I'm super excited about Amon-Ra St. Brown. Definitely.
Yeah, I
So
I'm excited to watch him play. So tell us, Judy,
I
about your game. Commanders at Bucks.
so Commanders at Bucks. Tampa Bay is favored by 3.5 points. Basically, their home point 3 points, a little bit more than that. Over unders 43.5. So Vegas doesn't expect this to be a fun game. It's going to be hot here in Tampa for sure. Jaden Daniels versus Baker Mayfield. Baker's another one that's been passed around the NFL, and he seems to have found a home here in Tampa Bay. Although it's going to be interesting because the offensive coordinator that was in Tampa Bay last year left and is now the head coach in Atlanta. So Baker's working with a different offensive coordinator. Hopefully, the remaining structure is still there and he can kind of pick up where he left off, because the last game that I got to go to last year was actually the Buccaneers playing Philadelphia in the wild card weekend playoff game, and the Bucks won. They lost the next weekend in Detroit, I believe. Anyhow, the Bucks wide receivers, I think, just kind of fly under the radar. Nobody's super excited in fantasy for them, along with Baker Mayfield, and it could be exciting. So we're sleeping a little bit on Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, as well as their running backs. So Rashad White and Bucky Irving is a rookie, and they love to rely on their running backs. They're going to run the ball. So it's going to be interesting to see what they can do there. The Commanders don't have a great defense, and I expect them to try to run that ball a lot. On the other side, I'm excited to see Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin and De'Ami Brown, and see how that's going to play out. So we've talked at length about all three of those players, and that we're super excited to finally get them on the field and see what we're going to get. As well, I'm kind of more interested to see how much they're going to use Brian Robinson or Austin Eckler. I feel like they brought in Eckler and we all just thought, oh, automatically the older one is the lead back. And while they may put that on the depth chart, it doesn't always translate to on the field. And Brian Robinson last year had a decent year. So he had 2 games that exceeded, I think they were around 25 points in fantasy scores, but most were just average. But he was also sharing the backfield with Antonio Gibson, who's now left and gone to New England. So it's going to be interesting to see how that split plays out. And I'm more excited to see how much Jaden Daniels ends up running the ball.
Yeah, Brian
This
Robinson Jr. is somebody I've had on my fantasy teams before. He seemed like he was a reliable producer. So he's, definitely someone to keep an eye on the Commanders team. I don't know how excited I am about this game necessarily, but we'll see what
yeah.
Baker Mayfield manages to do. And with his new offensive coordinator, these are also 2 teams that I wasn't very excited about drafting players from onto my fantasy team. I think I did grab Brian Robinson in one of my leagues because I do know that he does have that experience and that he was fairly consistent in the past.
Yeah. This could turn into another yuck game, and it's going to be plus 90 degrees and just a big sweat fest, and everyone's tired and getting IVs on the sideline, and nobody can actually do anything. So we
So,
have
are there
some
any other games
Yeah, so
to
we have some
mention?
other games that we didn't cover, and I'm going to quickly run through them. One of the more exciting games is the Arizona Cardinals at the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo's favored by 6 points. Now we're getting into almost a touchdown, because usually you get to count that extra point, but we'll call it a touchdown. Uh, Buffalo's favored by 6 points, and then the over-under of 48.5 points. So we are expecting scoring in this game. The one thing that I want to mention in this game is this is one of those situations where we're always talking about coast to coast teams. So teams traveling from one coast to the other, do they perform well or not so well? And over the last 3 seasons, when a Pacific team travels to play on the Eastern time zone, the Pacific team covers the spread 63% of the time. And the Pacific team wins 69% of the time. So should we all be putting money on the Cardinals, either on the line? I like getting 6 points, so I probably would take them on the line with this statistic, because that's a pretty good advantage and a pretty big number to sway that. How do y'all feel about that?
Put $5 on that bet.
All right, we'll do that. I think this is going to be an exciting game, and we could have covered this one because all the pieces are here. And we've talked about Kyler Murray. We've talked about Josh Allen. We've talked about how much we love all the Bills wide receivers. So this is
Mhm.
going to be a fun game. This one's definitely going to be on my TV in one of the boxes. Another
Right.
one that is one-sided and a not so fun game that we probably won't be watching is the Patriots at the Bengals. The Bengals are favored by 9 points. That's a huge amount to be favored in week 1. And Jacoby Brissett is starting for the Patriots, and nobody wants to watch Jacoby Brissett. Give me their rookie, give me some hope, because Jacoby Brissett is no hope for me. And maybe he's fine and he can actually execute the game plan, but I don't want to see somebody just execute and lose by 8 and cover the spread technically. I just don't want to watch this game. I am excited to have Joe Burrow back, but the scheduling gods for the NFL did not gift us with a good Joe Burrow game. I'll have to look and see who they're playing next week because this one is not good.
And in terms of fantasy football draft strategies, though, I picked up the Bengals defense in one of my leagues because they are favored by -9.
Yeah,
So,
there you go.
yeah, draft
That should be,
strategies.
yep, that should be a good play. We also have the Titans at Chicago Bears. So Tennessee Titans at Chicago Bears. Chicago is favored by 4.5 points, and the over-under is 45.5. So it's kind of a mid-scoring game. I don't think anyone really knows what we're going to see with the Titans coming out this year, with Will Levis as the starting quarterback, and we've got a rookie quarterback over in Chicago. So this one, I think they just said Chicago's got the better defense, so they're going to win, and we don't know who's going to score the points. It'll be one that I'll tune into, but it's probably not. I'm not excited about it, but I just am not excited about the Titans and the Bears. Same can be said with the Panthers and Saints. I went to training camp for the Panthers, and I think I may have seen enough Panthers to last me the year already. And that was only an hour, but it wasn't really good. And I don't expect the Saints to be super good this year either. New Orleans is favored by 4, over under of 40.5. So I don't think anything's going to be happening down in New Orleans. Not that we want to watch.
Sleeping at the Superdome.
Yeah, sleeping at the Superdome. Raiders at Chargers. Chargers are favored by 3.5 points, which is interesting. I feel like, well, that is just because they're playing at home, but it's not really a home game, because if you've ever seen that stadium in LA on game day, Vegas is only 3.5 hours away, and it will be completely packed with Raiders fans. It won't appear like a home game. So I'm a little surprised Chargers are actually favored here, and I guess that is probably just because of the coaching change and that we get Jim Harbaugh. The over-under is 41.5. It definitely could exceed that, and this one could be a sneaky game on Sunday that we may end up tuning in late to see how it's going. Dallas Cowboys at Cleveland Browns. Cleveland's favored by 2.5. Over-under is 42.5. I really want to watch CeeDee Lamb. I really hate watching the Browns, and I really don't want to watch Deshaun Watson ever again in an NFL game after all of his legal issues that we will not talk through, but I'm sure we're all just, yeah, boo, Deshaun Watson. Why are you still playing?
Yeah, I'm feeling the same way. CeeDee Lamb was my number 1 draft pick in our draft last night, Judy. He got his paycheck, and I've had him on my fantasy team before, and he can be very exciting to watch, and that's about the only reason I'm excited about that game.
Yeah, I agree. And then Monday night, we have the New York Jets at the San Francisco 49ers. So we're going the other coast. We already talked about what the Pacific coast coming to the Eastern time zone. And now we're going Eastern time zone to Pacific time zone. Statistically, that one doesn't have the advantage that we saw going the other way. So it's 50-50 on covering the spread when we have an Eastern time zone team going to the Pacific time zone. But the Eastern time zone team does win 58% of the time. I'm not going to put any money on the Jets winning for sure.
Me
Maybe
either.
I'll just stay away. I picked up the 49er defense, and we'll see. I've heard like Aaron Rodgers has just got that team in disarray and not leading them to much of anywhere. And they don't have a good
Yeah.
backup like the Atlanta situation. So we'll see what we get
No,
there.
they don't. No, they don't. And I am not excited about the Jets. I'm not excited about Aaron Rodgers. I really want to like San Francisco. You know, they just barely missed out on that Super Bowl win last year, but their players have had injuries or contract holdouts, or they're getting a little long in the tooth. So we'll kind of have to see what San Francisco does this year. I think that they're definitely going to come out on top in this game.
Yeah.
I w- if Aaron Rodgers plays the whole game, maybe I'll be surprised, because I don't even know why he's there. He didn't seem to be excited last year at all. He went out for 4 plays into the season, and he just doesn't seem like he seems like he's just there because they're paying him, and that's the only reason. Not like he actually really wants to play football or do anything for the team. It's all about Mr. Aaron Rodgers.
I feel
Boo
like
on
we
him.
could see like
Anyway.
a big 2-year-old fit. Like, halfway through the game, Aaron Rodgers just has a meltdown and takes his
Does he have a
helmet,
temper
walks out
tantrum?
walks out to the 50-yard line, throws it down and leaves the stadium or something. One of those classic
He
meltdowns that
you really could. You really could. It could happen.
yeah,
That might be worth watching.
that would definitely be worth watching. I would be excited to see that happen. But yeah, we'll
Yeah.
see what we
We'll
get Monday night. It'll be
we'll
exciting
see
to
what we
have it
got.
back, but I'm gonna bet on the 49ers. I think even with the Eastern time zone winning 58%, I'm just not gonna buy
Yeah.
it.
No.
And I think the 49ers are all healthy right now. We don't have to worry too much about week 1. They got Ayuk back, got that all settled, and we can just move forward with football now in San Francisco.
That's right.
Enjoy watching football next weekend. We hope that you've enjoyed our game review. We'll have more fantasy action for you this week. The best way you can support us is to leave a 5-star review or follow our podcast or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Getting positive reviews really helps us on our rankings, and it will support our show so we can continue to make more shows for you. If you're enjoying the Fangirl Football podcast and you're ready to dive into the season, go to our website at fangirlfootball.com and join a league and play with us. Share your link with friends and play together. Winners will get some Fangirl Football swag. If you're enjoying the Fangirl Football podcast and you're ready to dive into the season, go to our website at fangirlfootball.com and join a league and play with us. Share your link with friends and play together. Winners will get some Fangirl Football swag.